Hello, everyone. Thanks to the good folks over at O'Reilly Media, we will be giving away a free pass to OSCON 2015 in Portland. To enter, just send us an email at show@thecloudcast.net between now and Friday, July 10th, and tell us about your open source journey. Most interesting story wins. And even if you don't win, use the code CLOUD20 and you'll get a 20% discount on your registration. Thanks for listening, and now on to the show.
Cloudcast Media presents from the massive studios in Raleigh, North Carolina. This is the Cloudcast with Aaron Delp and Brian Gracely, bringing you the best of cloud computing from around the world.
Good morning, good evening. Welcome back to another episode of the Cloudcast. We are still here at DockerCon 2015 out in San Francisco. We are a lot of interesting stuff. So we're getting into the afternoon. A lot of cool stuff from the keynote. And, you know, as you guys all know, we always do a mix of some of the bigger companies you've heard of, and then the stuff that we love is whenever we get a chance to talk to new startups, especially really new startups, people with unique ideas, unique ways of trying to solve problems. And today we're excited. We've got Jeff and Louise from DataWise. So, guys, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
So we ended up talking, Louise and I ended up bumping into each other at the Docker event last night and got to talking. And give us a little bit of your background, because your background is pretty rich, and tell us the types of problems you guys are trying to solve, because it's a rich set of backgrounds, and then you're trying to take on a very big problem around containers, which is great because it's got the opportunity to go make big differences. So tell us about yourselves and what you guys are trying to do with DataWise.
Absolutely. So first of all, thank you. Really glad to be here. We're really excited about DockerCon. We're really excited about containers. The core of the team came from Cisco. We were the development team for the Unified Compute System, UCS system.
Yep.
So for those who aren't familiar with UCS, it was Cisco's entrance to the server business. The claim to fame was basically integrating virtual machines with servers and the network and managing them holistically for density, performance. And when we were at Cisco, we were looking at new technologies and new trends. And one of them being open source software, open source applications like big data and NoSQL, as well as open source innovations like Linux containers and Docker. So we got really excited about that. There was also another trend that we were interested in that was towards commodity hardware. Mm-hmm. Being from Cisco, we had some great customers, but they all wanted to maybe move to something a little more commodity. Sure. And so we saw a great opportunity to look at storage, which was also missing from Cisco at that time, and network issues, what we like to call I/O issues, especially related to these new apps and containers.
Yeah, and you definitely, Aaron and I were both around when UCS first came out, and it was, having sort of lived in the system days when it was lots of pieces, and now you had one approach, one view systematically what it looked like. It was pretty revolutionary, and so, but it then introduced a new set of challenges. You had, we used to joke when we first started the show, we used to call it two guys and one wire, because we thought that whole converged network thing was going to be this huge, its own industry. It kind of blended in with everything else, but it's trying to solve I/O challenges. Storage, network on top of system is a complicated thing. So having that expertise is huge for you guys.
And actually, it's been exacerbated by this whole movement towards commodity hardware. Mm-hmm. You go out and you buy this white box, and it's got a whole bunch of disks, and it's got a whole bunch of memory, and now the clusters and you compute. It's all about data, not just data at rest anymore, but data movement. So the I/O problems get even harder to solve. It's kind of like going backwards in time to 20 years ago, where now you're managing things kind of bare metal, one machine at a time. So when you're talking about these new apps, where their data set now spans multiple boxes, and you're trying to containerize them, network issues and storage issues basically multiply.
Yeah, right. And so we were joking around before we hit record of, one of the big things is everyone's, Docker is easy, containers are easy, and we were saying, well, it's because we hadn't really solved a lot of the hard problems yet. But so with that in mind, at the end of the day, what problems are you trying to solve?
Well, we feel that containers have a lot of challenges around storage and network, and I think a lot of the companies that you see out there and a lot of the solutions try to address one or the other. And we feel, again, with a lot of data movement and these new apps, that it's really you have to solve both holistically.
Yeah.
You have to look at not just how data is stored, but how it's moved, and that involves network and storage. So I think we like to call it solving I/O as opposed to solving network issues and solving storage issues.
Yep.
And this isn't just about making things simpler or easier to manage. This is also about performance, about quality of service, and about other things that people know and love about traditional enterprise kind of solutions.
Right. Yeah, and I think one of the things, we used to see this, Aaron, when back in the day there was a storage silo team, there was a network silo team. I worked at Cisco for a long time. You spoke to one team. When UCS came along, all of a sudden you had the room kind of became a blended team, and I think over the last 4 or 5 years that's happened. So you guys taking an approach that says it's an I/O problem, and you've got to think, because now you've got you don't just have north and south flows anymore. You've got east and west flows. You've got sort of these operational teams that are trying to figure out, well, where does this demarcation point stop and that start? So you guys are still sort of in stealth. It's still early days. What is Project 6? So if we go to your website, you see this Project 6. What's that about? What's on your shirts?
You've
Tell us
got
what's
great shirts,
going on.
yes.
Yeah.
Project 6 is a preview of what we're working on that exemplifies some of the concepts Jeff talked about.
Okay.
At its core, it's a system for deploying and managing containers across a cluster of hosts, and it really tries to emphasize simplified networking to give every container its own IP address, make them first-class citizens on the network. Also includes some embedded DNS to simplify service discovery, let containers find each other and speak to each other. It also tries to take local disk partitioned into either persistent or temporary storage volumes according to what the container needs, and minimize the need for external storage. Have it be a very self-contained unit. The container gets scheduled along with the storage it needs. It gets an IP address and get a cluster up and running very, very quickly.
Right. And everything's software, right? Like you and I were talking last night, everything's software. You can run it in one of the public clouds, or you can run it on-prem, correct?
So we're actually focused on-prem.
Okay.
I think that's one of the areas where we're unique. We feel like Google and Amazon are doing great things in the public cloud to simplify running containers, but that automation, that simplicity is missing for enterprises, and we'd like to bring some of that to their environments.
Yeah. I think we hear that all the time. It's, you can run this at 10,000 server scale or 50, and a lot of people will go, I don't have that. I have 100 servers, but I'd still like.
Can I do 10?
Yeah, I want to go do 10, or I want to do 100. But they all have the problem of I want to go faster. So it's great that you guys are trying to get to a segment of the market that doesn't have 10,000 server problem.
So how do you define almost like the demarcation points, if you will, right, between what is Docker and what is built into Docker, and where do you guys pick up and or interoperate? Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, I'd say it's been a very fluid demarcation.
I'm sure.
Right? It's changing day to day.
I'm sure.
I think when we first got started, we believed that the gaps were there and the storage and network issues would need to be resolved. That's proven true, and now the plugins and the APIs to start integrating and collaborating with some of these open source projects are becoming more clearly defined, and we're excited to sort of pick up the newest releases and start integrating with those hooks.
Right. Yeah. So it's a matter of version 1.7 of Docker, which is the latest version, comes out in a bunch of new plugin architectures, and you guys have to kind of go back and go, okay, cool, this is what we have to do now, right? And then it's a matter of iterating from there.
Yeah, you prototype something quickly, and then you sort of make it production ready by integrating with the APIs that are becoming mature.
Right. Now, how much of what you guys are building is, you talked about open source being a trend. How much of what you're building will be open source bits, and how much will be, commercialized aspects of the product?
Well, I think right now everything that we're developing is open source. Project 6 right now is a download so that people can look at the binary, but we're working on open sourcing that to its fullest within the next probably quarter or so.
Okay.
Now, that being said, Project 6 is only one of the things that DataWise is working on, so we'll gradually roll other things out as the year goes along.
Okay.
So how does Project 6 compare to Docker Swarm or Mesos or Kubernetes? Like, kind of give everyone that maybe aren't familiar with where all the products lie in the ecosystem? Like, give us the lay of the land there.
It's probably most closely aligned with Kubernetes, I'd say. Early on we saw the trajectory of that project having a lot of potential, and so we chose to extend it. Over time, we want to add compatibility with Docker Swarm, with Mesos. We feel like they have the same need for persistent storage, and are starting to create the plugins necessary to collaborate with them.
Yeah. Are you guys... Do you find, as you're talking to, say, early customers, are you going after certain types of applications? I mean, you talked a little bit about big data. Obviously, you've both got background in traditional applications as well. Like, are there certain customer problems that sort of aligned applications at this point, or is it sort of just operational scale? What if somebody were listening and they said, that sounds like me, I should go download the bits? Like, what's a great profile for a customer these days?
I think many of the profiles of the customers that we've been talking to are stateful apps. So most of the container deployments that we have found today are stateless, and it's been always challenging to go take that next step and make the container environment a little more general purpose. So I think where you'll see a lot of value are in those environments that are deploying things like big data or NoSQL, or even legacy apps like MySQL. So if you look at those kind of applications, that really does apply fairly broadly across the board.
Yeah, you bring up a great point there, because I was having lunch with some folks, and we were actually talking about a little bit about how this trajectory of Docker and containers compares to OpenStack. And if you go back to early days of OpenStack, some people kind of forget, but it was really designed to be more ephemeral, stateless. Cloud computing in the day, wasn't about storing a lot of that stuff, and maybe it was really that way, and maybe that was just low-hanging fruit that was easy to pull down.
Right.
But at the end of the day, we moved toward stateful applications. And at least the customers I'm talking to, you almost are starting to very much see that very quickly here. Like when I was sitting in the tutorial this morning, they were like, okay, we're really, what's a good Docker container? It's stateless. Mm-hmm. You could see some people kind of going,
Well, and the thing about it that I don't want to call it like the big white elephant in the room, but if you go out and look at the top 10 Docker images that are out there, I mean, 7 or 8 of them are traditional database. It's MySQL. It's, some things like that. So they're still there. They're still in use. People are going to, they want to, in some cases, they don't need to rewrite the application, but they want to take advantage of the speed and the efficiency and the portability and stuff. So helping them with that is a big deal.
Absolutely. And the other potential of containers that we see is that you don't necessarily have to run it on a hypervisor. It could run on bare metal.
Yep.
Right? So why not? I mean, why do you have to pay the overhead of an operating system per application, for example? Where these are all server-side apps, you really only need one OS. But you still need the isolation potentially, the performance of bare metal, but you want to be able to also pack them in very, very densely.
Right. So if somebody wants to reach out to you guys, engage around Project 6 and so forth, what's the engagement model today?
We have a Project 6 GitHub page. That's the best way to try and download the product. Yeah. Also our website and an email address, project6@datawise.io.
Very cool. So anyways, we'll wrap this up real quick. If people want to kind of find out more about what events are you guys going to be at, they can see you in person, or other than email and the GitHub page, what's the best way to engage you guys?
I think email is the best way to reach us. We're happy to help you with your environment and setting something up, and we'll see you at LinuxCon in a couple months as well.
Very nice.
Definitely visit our website, datawise.io.
Good deal. Well, with that, for Jeff and Louise and Aaron, guys, thanks for being on. Excited. We're always excited to have new startups, folks that are going to go break new ground and really kind of solve problems. I like the fact that you guys sort of aren't just building technology. You're looking at it from purely a solving problem perspective. You've solved a type of problem before. So folks, go take a look at it, datawise.io. And for that, we're going to wrap it up. As always, you can follow us on Twitter at @thecloudcastnet or on the web at thecloudcast.net. Guys, thanks, and we'll have some more shows from DockerCon.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to The Cloudcast. Please visit thecloudcast.net to find more shows, show notes, videos, and everything social media.